Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Within the theorydom, there are some pretty absurd Harry Potter theories out there, and I'll admit, I'm likely responsible for quite a few of them. However, even when I present more rational theories, they often face their fair share of scrutiny. There are usually a number of ways in which even a fairly ironclad theory can be challenged. But every once in a while, a theory comes along with so few holes that, for the most part, Potterheads actually agree. Theories so plausible and with so little evidence pointing against them, or just inconsequential and light-hearted, that it's easier to just roll with them than to argue. Today we're going to be taking a look at 7 theories that fit exactly this criteria. Theories you hear and just think, why not? Let's dive in. Moody's motive. This theory is based around a moment in the series where Mad-Eye Moody shows Harry a photo featuring all of the members of the original Order of the Phoenix. It occurs at number 12 Grimmauld Place, the Order's headquarters. At face value, this moment seems fairly inconsequential, with Moody acting as if he's showing Harry the photo because he thought he'd be interested. But I think there were some deeper motivations for Moody's actions. This was a moment in the series where Harry seemed almost overly eager in wanting to join the Order, and I think that showing Harry the photo was a subtle nod to the fact that war, and particularly the casualties of war, are very real. In order to reinforce his point, Moody even went into the specifics of how they died at the hands of Voldemort and his Death Eaters. And I think it worked, as shown by Harry's reaction. He did not know why it had been such a shock. He had seen pictures of his parents before, after all, and he had met Wormtail, but to have them sprung on him like that, when he was least expecting it, no one would like that, he thought angrily. And then, to see them surrounded by all those other happy faces, Benji Fenwick, who had been found in bits, and Gideon Pruitt, who had died like a hero, and the Longbottoms, who had been tortured into madness, all waving happily out of the photograph forevermore, not knowing that they were doomed. Well, Moody might find that interesting. He, Harry, found it disturbing. Professor RJ Lupin. Remus Lupin became a professor at Hogwarts in Harry Potter's 3rd year, serving as the new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor for Prisoner of Azkaban. And what this means is that Lupin formally became a professor in his early 30s. However, when we first see Lupin on the train near the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, there are some curious details about he's got with him, particularly his briefcase. "Professor RJ Lupin," whispered Hermione at once. "How do you know that?" "It's on his case," she replied, pointing at the luggage rack over the man's head, where there was a small, battered case held together with a large quantity of neatly knotted string. The name Professor RJ Lupin was stamped across one corner, in peeling letters. And what's particularly interesting about this passage is that despite only becoming a professor that year, his briefcase had peeling letters with his name and position, suggesting that the stamp is just as old as the briefcase itself. We also know that Lupin was shunned from working due to his status as a werewolf. So why does he have this stamp, and where did he get it from? My best guess, James Potter. James Potter was not only a close friend of Remus, but also supported him financially for some time. Therefore, I suspect that James gifted the suitcase to Remus, complete with the label Professor RJ Lupin. Why? Well, it's possible that Remus, being James's close friend, would have at some point shared with him his desire to become a professor, and James, being the supporting friend that he is, hoped that his gift would serve as a symbol of hope for Remus. Motherly Molly. Near the beginning of the Philosopher's Stone, when we're first brought to King's Cross Station, there is a curious exchange between Harry and Molly Weasley. Heart hammering, Harry pushed his cart after them. They stopped, and so did he, just near enough to hear what they were saying. "Now, what's the platform number?" said the boy's mother. 9 3/4, piped a small girl, also red-headed, who was holding her hand. "Mum, can't I go?" "You're not old enough, Ginny. Now be quiet." "All right, Percy, you go first." And this exchange is interesting because Molly almost certainly knows which platform number it is. While this was Ron's first year, and Ginny had yet to attend the school, she did have 5 other children already going to Hogwarts. Not to mention the fact that she attended Hogwarts herself. So why does she ask where the platform number is? The answer is quite a sweet one. You see, while Molly didn't know Harry yet, she did recognize that he was likely another first year who was lost, confused, and most importantly, unaccompanied. When she saw Harry alone and confused with a trolley and an owl between platforms 9 and 10, she loudly said, "What's the platform number?" to help him out and let him know that A, he wasn't alone, and B, he could turn to them for help. This moment is also significant in establishing Molly as a mother figure for Harry. Throughout the series, she consistently embodies the role of a caring guardian, providing warmth and comfort, and this is the first example of that. Without this explanation, the whole scene doesn't make any sense. The curious case of Crook Shanks. Before being adopted by Hermione Granger, Crook Shanks, the half-measle ginger cat, was just a cat in a pet store that apparently nobody wanted. We know that in 1993 he's purchased from Magical Menagerie by Hermione, going on to win her heart, as well as the heart of many others. But have you ever wondered who Crook Shanks belonged to before Hermione? One popular fan theory suggests that Crook Shanks, our favourite squished-faced cat, once belonged to none other than the Potter family, specifically Lily Potter. Supporting arguments are that he had been at Magical Menagerie for ages, he knew exactly who Sirius and Wormtail were in their animagus forms, suggesting prior knowledge, and had a particular hatred for Scabbers. A cat is mentioned in a letter found addressed to Sirius from his mum. This proves that the Potters had one. Harry apparently almost killed the cat on his toy broomstick. You know, it only rises about 2 feet off the ground, but he nearly killed the cat and he smashed a horrible vase Petunia sent me for Christmas. New Traveller. In the Chamber of Secrets, Hagrid's acromantula Aragog communicates with Harry and Ron, revealing that he was originally given to Hagrid by a traveller. I was not born in the castle. I come from a distant land. A traveller gave me to Hagrid when I was an egg. Hagrid was only a boy, but he cared for me, hidden in a cupboard in the castle, feeding me on scraps from the table. The theory spreading around, that's not my own, is this. Newt Scamander was the traveller that gave Aragog to Hagrid. We know that after many years of travelling, Newt returned to Hogwarts, and we also know that he would have picked up many creatures along the way. Hagrid attended Hogwarts during the timeline that Newt returned to the school, the 40s, so it seems entirely plausible that Newt would have met the young half-giant and perhaps given him Aragog. Others have also pointed out that, because Newt likely knew that he would aid Dumbledore in defeating Grindelwald, he may have wanted to hand off Aragog in order to make sure that he was safe. Who better to give him to than a gentle half-giant with an affinity for magical creatures? Marauders Mystery. The Marauders map is a magical artifact that was created by James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew during their time at Hogwarts School. It shows the entire Hogwarts School grounds and reveals the location of everyone within the castle, showing their movements with tiny footprints. The map is activated with the phrase, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good," and it can be concealed with "mischief managed." Harry makes great use of the map during the series, and it becomes one of the most important tools he uses in the lead-up to the Second Wizarding War. However, one popular fan theory asserts that when Lupin died, so too did the magic of the map. Lupin is important here because he was the last of the Marauders to die, his death signifying the true end of the 4 Marauders. And so, from the moment of Lupin's death, the map only showed mischief managed from then on. Umbridges Unyielding ugliness. I don't think that anyone would argue that Umbridge is one of the worst Harry Potter characters. In fact, I've seen polls online comparing her to Voldemort, which is pretty impressive if we consider the death toll that Voldemort is directly responsible for. However, one theory online suggests that Umbridge only really took her level of hatred and prejudice to the next level when she was captured and traumatized by the Centaurs in the Forbidden Forest. The theory states that she was evil before and after the incident. That can't really be argued. But that it was the incident itself that made her hate Muggleborns, since Hermione, who tricked her into going to the forest, was a Muggleborn. In the Deathly Hallows, for example, Umbridge is placed as head of the Muggleborn Registration Commission, highlighting a notable escalation in her level of prejudice. The Ministry of Magic is undertaking a survey of so-called Muggleborns, better to understand how they came to possess magical secrets. Recent research undertaken by the Department of Mysteries reveals that magic can only be passed from person to person when wizards reproduce. Where no proven wizarding ancestry exists, therefore, the so-called Muggleborn is likely to have obtained magical power by theft or force. Yes, Umbridge was wearing Salazar Slytherin's locket during this time, and yes, that could be the reason for her escalation in intolerance. However, I think her negative experiences with Harry, Hermione, and the Centaurs may have had something to do with it. And that's it for today's video. What do you think? Do you have any issues with these theories, or do they check out? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams, and to forget to live.